My wedding day was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I'd dreamed about it since I was a little girl, spinning around in old thrift store veils that my mother lovingly stitched back together by hand. But the moment my future mother-in-law looked at my parents, I felt something was wrong. My father wore his only suit, carefully pressed the night before. My mother carried the same small lace purse she'd brought to my high school graduation. They looked proud, nervous, and painfully out of place in a ballroom filled with luxury, diamonds, and champagne. Then her voice cut through the room. "Who let these beggars into my son's wedding?" The room fell silent. Every head turned toward my parents. My mother's hands tightened around her purse. My father lowered his eyes in embarrassment. I waited for my fiancé to defend them. He said nothing. Without thinking, I walked to the center of the aisle, pulled off my veil, and let it fall to the floor. Gasps echoed around the ballroom. Fighting back tears, I looked at everyone and quietly said, "I won't marry into a family that insults the people who raised me." I turned away. 5 minutes later, everything changed. The ballroom doors burst open as a line of sleek black luxury cars pulled up outside. Guests rushed to the windows, whispering in confusion. From the first car stepped a distinguished man in a navy coat, followed by 2 security guards. He ignored everyone else and walked straight toward me. "Are you Eliza Monroe?" he asked. I nodded. He handed me a sealed envelope. "Your grandfather instructed me to deliver this to you if anything like this ever happened on your wedding day." My hands shook as I opened the letter. It was my grandfather's handwriting. Asterisk. "If the family you choose cannot respect the family you came from, then they are not worthy of you. Today your inheritance becomes yours." Sis. I looked up in disbelief. The man smiled politely. "Everything now belongs to you. The Monroe estate, the family businesses, and your grandfather's seat on the foundation's board." Across the room, my ex-fiance's mother suddenly turned pale. "The Monroe estate," she whispered. I met her eyes. "You mean the estate your husband has been trying to purchase for years?" She couldn't answer. Instead, she stared at me in complete shock. "And today," I continued calmly, "you called its owners beggars." Not another word came out of her mouth. For the first time that day, I smiled. As I walked toward the waiting cars, my ex-fiancé, his mother, and several guests hurried after me. Before they could reach me, the security team stepped forward. "I'm sorry," one guard said politely. "This area is reserved for members of the Monroe family." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Growing up, I'd watched my parents work endlessly without ever complaining. My mother cleaned homes for wealthy families like this one, and my father sacrificed everything so I could have opportunities they never had. Now I was climbing into a limousine they could only dream of entering. Still, the victory couldn't erase the pain of seeing my parents humiliated. As our car pulled away, I looked back and saw my mother standing alone near the entrance. "Stop the car," I told the driver. I hurried back, took her hand, and smiled through my tears. "You don't belong outside," I whispered. "Your family." She broke down crying as I led her into the car beside me. Together, we drove to my grandfather's magnificent countryside estate, a place I'd only ever seen in old photographs. That evening, while the wedding I had walked away from became nothing more than gossip, I lit a candle in memory of the grandfather who had always believed in me. His final gift wasn't just an inheritance. It was the reminder that true wealth is measured by love, dignity, and the family that stands beside you when the rest of the world turns away. A single envelope sat locked inside my grandfather's private desk drawer. Across the front, in careful handwriting, were the words, "For Eliza, the one who listens." Inside was an old brass key and a handwritten note. Asterisk, "Don't fight for your place. Build it. The house, the land, and the trust are yours now. Quiet power lasts the longest." Sis. I stood alone in his study, unable to move. For years I had felt invisible, ignored by my own family, treated as though my voice didn't matter. But my grandfather had seen me all along. The next morning, my attorney confirmed what I could hardly believe. 6 months before his death, my grandfather had quietly transferred everything into my name. The estate, the businesses, the trust, the artwork. Every legal document already carried my signature. My parents received only a modest gift. Everything else belonged to me. That evening, I invited my sister and my ex-fiance's mother to dinner at the estate. They arrived dressed in expensive designer clothes, pretending nothing had happened. The staff welcomed them with champagne while they admired the mansion they believed would one day belong to them. When dessert was served, I placed 2 envelopes on the table. They opened them. My sister's face lost all color. The first document permanently removed her from any future claim to the Monroe properties. The second was a formal legal notice demanding she stop spreading false accusations about me. "You're making a huge mistake," she snapped. I smiled calmly. "No," I replied. "I'm correcting yours." Neither of them spoke again. They walked out of the estate the same way I had once walked out of that wedding, quietly and defeated. 2 days later the scandal exploded. Someone leaked a voicemail. It was my sister's voice, screaming at my bedridden grandfather. Just die already so I can have what's mine. Within hours, every news outlet carried the story. Sponsors canceled their contracts. Modeling agencies cut ties. Her carefully crafted public image collapsed overnight. Then another leak surfaced. Security footage showed my parents throwing my grandfather's priceless record collection into the trash only hours after his funeral. People weren't shocked by the money. They were shocked by the cruelty. The phones at the Monroe Foundation never stopped ringing. Board members, reporters, and business partners all wanted to meet the mysterious granddaughter who had inherited everything. I accepted only one interview. When the reporter asked why I had stayed silent for so long, I answered simply, "My grandfather taught me that silence isn't weakness. It's patience." She asked what I would say to my family. I looked directly into the camera. "Thank you for underestimating me." That single sentence spread across every news channel. Later that evening, the Monroe Foundation launched its new website. At the bottom of the homepage, beneath the announcement of new leadership, one sentence appeared. "Dedicated to those who choose integrity even when no one is watching." My mother called the next morning. Her voice trembled. "Liza, we didn't understand. We never knew about the will. We're still family." I let the silence linger. Then I answered quietly, "You knew enough." I ended the call. A day later, my sister's attorney contacted me. They offered a financial settlement if I agreed to stop pursuing legal action and remain silent. My response was short. Reputation isn't something you can buy back. A week later, my grandfather's private attorney delivered one final letter. It had been written just 2 months before he passed away. Inside he wrote, "I always believed you would discover the truth. You were never the loudest person in the room. You were the one who listened. You noticed what others ignored and still chose kindness. I hope one day the world sees the woman I've always known." For the first time in years I cried. Not because I had lost him. Because someone had truly understood me. Soon afterward, the bank informed me that the story had gone viral. News crews gathered outside the estate. Television networks requested interviews. I declined every one of them. By New Year's Eve, investigators had uncovered years of financial fraud committed by my parents against my grandfather's estate. Hidden records. False claims. Missing funds. The truth they had buried for years had finally surfaced. My sister's employer dismissed her after the investigation became public. That night she sent me a message from an unknown number. "You ruined our lives." I read it once. Then deleted it without replying. I was sitting beside the quiet lake house my grandfather had left me. Snow covered the dock. A fire crackled inside the stone fireplace. For the first time in years I felt completely at peace. I wanted neither revenge nor attention. I wanted distance. I wanted freedom. Most of all, I wanted to honor the man who had believed in me when no one else did. Before leaving the house, I placed one final envelope on the mantel. Inside was a photograph from my grandfather's funeral. My parents and my sister were laughing together. On the back I wrote one final message. "I kept everything Grandpa left for me. You kept only your reflection." I closed the front door behind me without looking back. Some victories aren't celebrated with applause. They're celebrated with peace. And for the first time in my life, peace belonged to me.